Your church can't save you. But the passion that people have when defending or promoting their church, or shall we say their preferred brand of church, is very often far more obvious than their passion to promote or defend Jesus, who is the only thing that can save you. Today I want us to slow down for a few minutes and examine a particular part of our internal church culture that might need some adjustment. It can be difficult to see how the general culture around us is affecting us because it's so ever present. It's hard to back up and see it from the outside because no matter which way we turn, it's still all around us. And it can be even harder to evaluate the culture within our churches because not only is it all around us like the general culture, but we're usually very comfortable or even proud and committed to that culture, to that Christian environment that we're a part of establishing and maintaining. But when Paul told the saints in Corinth to examine themselves, to test themselves, to see if they really were in the faith, he knew that even that church culture, that Christian environment, could slip up and get off target over the course of time. As Christians, we're usually pretty good at finding the problems in the world, seeing the things within that worldly culture that need adjusted. But we're often not so good at looking in the mirror and examining ourselves, at taking a candid, raw assessment of the culture within the church that we've become so familiar and comfortable with. Today, let's slow down for a few minutes and examine a particular part of that internal church culture that might need some modification, maybe even what we could call some repentance. I'm aware of this issue because over the course of several months I've had the opportunity to step back and observe the reaction to a number of videos I've published, to read the comments and feel the vibe, as they say, to some of the content of those videos. I've noticed one thing in particular that suggests that our internal church culture may have lost focus. We may have gotten our priorities messed up a bit. You may agree or you may disagree, but I think the observation is worth sharing with you. Let's start by looking briefly at a couple things that Jesus said. Jesus spoke very clearly in John chapter 14 when he said, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." He also said, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." One more thing he said was, "And if I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also." You see, in these statements, Jesus states very clearly, without any ambiguity, that he is the one and only way to heaven, that apart from him, we can do nothing, and that he'll be the one. He will be the one to come back and get us, to take us to heaven. In these statements, he states very clearly that he is the singular, exclusive, absolute sole, only path to heaven. There are no alternatives. I don't desire to be controversial or provocative or rude. I really don't. But in light of what we've just reviewed, combined with the strong reactions I frequently get to some of my video content, I feel the need to remind us all that our church can't save us. Going to a church with a particular name on the sign isn't the pathway to heaven. Hearing sermons from a famous man in your church pulpit isn't the pathway to heaven. Rigorously following all your church traditions and practices isn't the pathway to heaven. If those were the pathway to heaven, Jesus would have said so. But he didn't. He said, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Now, Why do I bring all this up? What's the point? The point is that too many of us have made an idol out of our church. Jesus spoke clearly when he said he was the only way to heaven. So if we actually love those who are lost, our discussion, our emotion, and our passion should be centered around Jesus. But I've seen for many years now, maybe even decades, that if you want to get someone passionate about their faith or their religion, say something about their church. Call into question something they do and then stand back and wait for the explosion. I see it all the time on this channel. And listen, God knows. And when I say that, I mean literally that God knows that I am far from perfect on this. So many of the videos on this channel come out of my own shortcomings and are just really reminders to myself to be better, to step a little closer to what God calls me to be. So the reminder to all of us today is, stop talking so much about your church and start talking more about God and Jesus and what they've done to rescue us. Your church is not what saves you. Jesus is. Let's line up our passion and our energy and our conversation in line with that reality. Now, if you've made it this far, let me make sure you hear something clearly. I'm not saying, not implying, not insinuating that your choice of church doesn't matter. It does. It does. And I'm also not saying that we should never talk about the church. What I'm saying is that our church culture has developed over time in such a way that we far too often elevate the significance of our church over the significance of God's gift and His Son's sacrifice. And for those of you thinking this is a bunch of nonsense, semantics, making a mountain out of a molehill, let's turn to Jesus' words again in Matthew 7:21 through 23. That records Jesus saying, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who's in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name?' And then I'll declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" Jesus was talking about people that were believers. Jesus was talking about people that were involved and busy doing stuff in their church. One way to paraphrase this passage could be, your church doesn't save you, I do. Stop focusing on your church so much and start focusing on me. Get to know me. You can attend services with your church, do all the required practices, check the right boxes, and still not know Jesus. Jesus' words in Matthew 7 should make that clear to us. Those are all good things to do, but they are no replacement for getting to know Jesus, the way, the truth, and life, and the only way to heaven. I certainly need this reminder, and perhaps you do as well. Thanks for listening. God bless you on your journey.